President Biden's former doctor, Kevin O'Connor, appeared on Capitol Hill yesterday for a highly anticipated House deposition on the possible cover-up of Joe Biden's declining health. But even though he was Biden's doctor for all 4 years of his presidency, the interview lasted less than 1 hour. O'Connor refused to talk. He pled the fifth over a dozen times.
Dr. O'Connor, were you ever told to lie about the president's health?
On the advice of counsel, I must respectfully decline to answer based upon the physician-patient privilege and in reliance on my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. I am not a lawyer. I must follow my lawyer's advice in this matter. I must respectfully decline to answer based on the physician-patient privilege and in reliance on my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. On my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. On my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. On my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. On my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Our senior congressional correspondent Chad Pergram chased the doctor down after his deposition and got similar results.
Dr. O'Connor, did you take the fifth at all points? Did you take the fifth because you're trying to cover up what the president's state was? Is he healthy now? Was he healthy when you...
Well, I guess we're just on repeat today.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that. I did not know that Dwight Schrute was President Biden's physician for all 4 years. Oh my God. So exciting. Was Michael Scott his chief of staff, and we're just finding out now? Yeah, I mean, this is wholly unsurprising because he has something to hide. It's very obvious. But the question is, is this a congressional issue? Do you keep trying to put the screws to the guy because he's not going to answer a thing? Or, I ask you, does this rise to the level of criminality? Should there be a criminal investigation of this doctor and what happened?
Well, that would be separate from him pleading this. And that sort of, I think, begs that bigger question of, is there a difference between an inference and then the legal protection? So, Lisa, to that point, the only Democrat in the room, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, said, oh, come on, it's ridiculous that someone pleading the fifth should rise to the level of an assumption of covering up criminal behavior, right? And that's an admonition by judges in court. They specifically say, just because someone pleads the fifth, you cannot infer that. But at the end of the day, why aren't you saying anything if you don't have someone to hide? The argument goes. So here, the good doctor, why couldn't you even answer the question, did someone tell you to lie? Wouldn't you take the opportunity to even say in that deposition, let me set the record straight, no one told me to lie, and plead the fifth otherwise?
Well, because he doesn't want to put Biden in a bad light, and he also doesn't want to perjure himself. Also, I would like to test Jasmine Crockett's mental acuity, so just her mental fitness. But beyond that, so the two key questions that the Oversight Committee were trying to get to and ask him, were you ever told to lie about the president's health, and did you ever believe President Biden was unfit to execute his duties? Pretty simple questions that he refused to answer. Also, what's interesting is if you go back to 2019, Dr. Kevin O'Connor had told the public that Biden was being treated for an enlarged prostate. But he specifically said it wasn't prostate cancer. So was he lying to us then as well in 2019? Because you even have Democrats like Drs. Ezekiel Emanuel after the prostate cancer diagnosis who went on MSNBC telling us that Biden probably had cancer dating back to the start of his presidency in 2021. So I have questions about that. But I think we can all pretty much conclude that, he's lying to us.
Right. And it also, not to add in another layer, but all of the ethical malpractice questions, either you didn't test for prostate cancer or you did and then you lied to the patient, right? There's a whole host. The whole point is of a million questions that this good doctor needs to answer for, and pleading the fifth in this particular proceedings, not going to cut it.
It's hard, Emily, between what you just said, Lisa, and what you're pointing out. It's hard to get around these questions.
Yeah.
Are you deficient as a physician? Did you fail the former president? Did you fail in the areas of testing, treatment? I mean, it's hard not to ask those questions when he pleads the fifth to something like this. And when we know the history of how long that enlarged prostate dates back to and what he had to say about it. And how did he know it wasn't cancer? Can we get that answer now?
Right.
Yep.
How did you make sure that it wasn't cancer back then? Look, Neera Tanden, one of the aides who's already testified in like the auto pin part of the investigation, received one of these letters. And I want to point this out because this is what the House Oversight Committee said with her. In light of unique and extraordinary nature of these matters under investigation, President Trump has determined that an assertion of executive privilege is not in the national interest and therefore is not justified with respect to particular subjects within the purview of the House Oversight Committee. that same waiving of immunity was given to Dr. Kevin O'Connor. So my question is, when he says he can plead the Fifth and patient doctor privilege, oh yes, all that is true to a certain degree, but the White House has waived your immunity and cleared you to be able to talk. Why won't he answer questions?
That's right, because Jeremy, so initially his attorney said, well, this is alarming and unprecedented, talking about the subpoena to have him come in. He said, it's privileged and this is ridiculous. But the point is that what was alarming and unprecedented was the cover-up of a declining Crypt Keeper president that led to massive destruction of our country's borders and lost lives, at least of 13 service members. So the American people need answers, and it's not up to this kid to say whether or not he's underprivileged beforehand. You go in, you give your answers, and then we'll decide, and then the administration will decide what the repercussions are.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, the American people are owed answers here. We have a right to know what happened. And his whole demeanor is almost as if, he's just doing, asking for some type of favor of him. Would you share a little bit about what happened? No. You owe us answers. And look, I've been in the congressional hearings, before. A few years ago, we were talking about exposing the issues in the military under the Biden administration. And you take time to prepare. You're going to get some questions from the people, on the other side of the aisle. They're going to be tough questions. You prepare for those questions. He didn't even try. Didn't even try to even get out his own points or make any type of argument about what happened. And to your point, ask the very basic question about, were you told to lie? It couldn't even answer that. So I think what it does is adds more fuel to the fire. I do want to make sure that our Congress continues to carry this out. They can't take the foot off the gas now. They have to keep, because the next investigation, the next hearings that come up, we need to make sure that they don't try to do the same thing. This, I plead the Fifth and not say anything at all. And is this a precedent for what's to happen? So I hope that we continue to put the foot on the pedal and make sure that we actually get answers for this.
That's right. Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.